So things just got even better for the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens' path to winning their division, another AFC North title, and the number 1 seed just got easier. We got to look at the Baltimore Ravens' strength of schedule in 2025, plus a key offensive weapon is now out of the division as George Pickens is no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler. However, the Cowboys tried to trade for Rashad Bateman.
No, I don't think so.
We also have Kyle Van Noy weighing in on some updates, some more Bengals and Trey Hendrickson drama, as he is clearly unhappy with the organization. So some things going around the AFC North to make the Ravens' job even easier to win the division yet again. Plus, Nate Wiggins is listed as a breakout candidate. We got to look at his performance in 2024 in his rookie season. The Ravens just parted ways with a key member of their coaching staff, and the Baltimore Ravens got more salary cap heading into next season. We got all that and more, man. So welcome in to another episode of Ravens Reports. It's your guy Noah here with For the Flock, as always, bringing you guys our top 5 news reports and storylines coming out of our Baltimore Ravens today. I hope you guys are having an absolute fantastic day. Let's dive into the content. At number 1, let's talk about Trey Hendrickson, which happens to be the biggest threat to the Baltimore Ravens offense for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, he's sacked Lamar Jackson 6 times in his career. He's also led the NFL in sacks this last season. He's a force to be reckoned with. There's no doubt about it. However, there continues to be some animosity brewing in between Trey Hendrickson and the Cincinnati Bengals. Hendrickson put out a statement today to ESPN. He said, "No communication has taken place between my camp and the organization post-draft. The offers prior to the draft did not reflect the vision we shared and were promised last offseason if I continue to play at a high level," which we know he did with 17.5 sacks. "The coaches are aware of these past conversations. Rather than using a collaboration to get us to a point to bring me home to the team, they are no longer communicating. I've been eagerly awaiting a resolution of the situation, but that's hard to do when there's no discussion and an evident lack of interest and reaching mutual goals." The Bengals are playing hardball. They told him, "Hey, bro, if you continue to perform like you have been, we'll talk next season." Next season rolled around after putting up 17.5 sacks, and the Bengals are not putting their money where their mouth is. J.J. Watt, he puts out a little statement here, and then Kyle Van Noy replies and says, "Hey, JJ, the next excuse these teams can no longer use is age." We know Kyle Van Noy obviously feeling some type of way about this after, never having posted double-digit sacks in the last 2 seasons in the oldest part of his career, 32, 33, now going into 34, has 2 seasons in a row double-digit sacks. He says, "No longer use age. Numbers are numbers. Trey deserves his cash money and will continue to ball, except for 2 games this season." And we know that what those 2 games are whenever the Baltimore Ravens play the Bengals twice. Last year, pulled out the broom and got a nice sweep on them Bengals. And I think we're going to do the same thing this year. Another team I would sure like to sweep is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've had our number over the last few seasons, but we finally got sweet revenge in the playoffs, which is what really mattered. So we beat them in the regular season and then beat them again in the playoffs last year. Feels like Lamar and John Harbaugh got that Pittsburgh Steeler monkey off their back and finally overcame. But, however, the Pittsburgh Steelers just lost their top weapon in George Pickens. We do know they traded for DK Metcalf, who's no scrub himself. They also have Roman Wilson, who's dealt with an injury last year, who's an early pick. They got Calvin Austin. They got Pratt Freiermuth. They did lose Najee Harris as well, who's given the Ravens troubles at times, but they're still quarterbackless. So the Cowboys were looking for another weapon to pair up with CeeDee Lamb. And they called up the old Baltimore Ravens and, "Hey, I see your guy Rashad over there. I see that he just put up like 700 and something yards and 9 touchdowns. That film looks pretty good. He could have had even more yards because he was getting open and cooking guys and separating. But sometimes the ball doesn't go his way because he happens to have Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, and some other dogs on the offense as well. So how would you like to send us Rashad Bateman, your former first-round pick?" And the Baltimore Ravens said,
"No, I don't think so. Thanks, man."
Yeah, you heard it right there from Eric DaCosta. Baltimore Ravens said no thank you. And they want to keep their very strong wide receiver core together. Zay Flowers, first ever homegrown wide receiver over 1,000 yards and a Pro Bowl in the same season, plus Rashad Bateman, another first-round pick. We saw what he's capable of now that he's healthy. Then you got DeAndre Hopkins as an upgrade at wide receiver 3. You got Devontae Walker, a recent draft pick from last year, who's got some 4.3 serious speed. Then you got LeJounte Wester added into the mix. Tom Wallace also returning on a deal. So the Ravens wide receiver group is looking pretty solid, especially that top trio there. And then some of the younger guys that are going to compete for time as well. I like this Ravens wide receiver core. And then you add in the tight ends and the running backs, Justice Hill and Derrick Henry and Keaton Mitchell coming back healthy. The offensive line, who's added 3 picks in this year's draft, plus you added Joe Noteboom as a swing tackle. The offense is going to be nasty again in 2025. Speaking of nasty, and number 3, check out this winter whiteout jersey. I think this was reposted from Sleeper Ravens, originally by the Graphic God. Winter whiteout jersey here on Derrick Henry, looking really good, man. This jersey is absolutely fire. If the Ravens were to come out with a concept like this, I would be all over it. I would definitely be buying one of those jerseys, no doubt about it. That whiteout look is clean. Anyways, to kind of recap some of the stuff going on around the division with George Pickens being traded out of the division. Trey Hendrickson openly requested a trade. Now there's more drama brewing there. They're not wanting to pay him. How's this going to shake out? I don't know. But other issues and drama on other teams around the AFC North is good for the Baltimore Ravens. Other teams losing their wide receiver 1 and weapons and possibly their number 1 pass rusher who sacked your quarterback 6 times. That's good news for the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Ravens were already in a tier by themselves in this division. The Bengals can no doubt beat the Baltimore Ravens with their serious passing attack. Joe Burrow led the NFL in passing yards last year and touchdowns. He's the real deal. He's very talented, and he happens to have the best wide receiver duo in the National Football League with Jamar Chase, who's absolutely torched us, and T. Higgins. However, the Bengals defense has been absolute dog water. They couldn't stop anything last year. I mean, the Ravens put up 41 on them in the first matchup in overtime and then hung 35 on them in the next matchup. I mean, they couldn't stop anything. And if you look at what the Bengals did in the offseason to address, first of all, some of their defensive issues and then also some of their offensive line issues where they gave up a lot of sacks to Joe Burrow. They didn't do much to make strides there. I don't think they did enough. They had some of the most salary cap in the league, but they didn't spend it all. I didn't think they had the greatest draft either. But at number 4, one guy that's going to try to slow down the Bengals wide receivers and actually did so pretty effectively at times last year was Nate Wiggins. Nate Wiggins had multiple reps where he had pass deflections on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, had some nice reps. Now the Bengals receivers still obviously cooked us, but Nate Wiggins was holding his own out there. I mean, he had multiple lockdown moments on Jamar Chase last season, guys like Malik Neighbors and other big-time wide receivers. He had 33 tackles, 13 pass deflections. He had a pick 6. He had an above-average 70.7 PFF grade. And he's only getting better. He didn't start off as a starter right in the beginning of the season, but he ended as a starter down the stretch and was playing really high-level football. Now, Malachi Starks being added into the mix next to Kyle Hamilton and Ardarius Washington, Marlon Humphrey, which has been a constant anchor in the secondary when healthy and has made plays for the Ravens. Roquan Smith, Matabike, Kyle Van Noy, Owe, and then Mike Green added. Like, the Ravens defense, I think, is going to get off to a hotter start in 2025, which could help the Ravens do what they want to do, and that's win the number 1 seed. They got the number 1 seed in 2023. The next year, they started 0-2, and that put them in a hole. You know, they were like a game or two behind the Chiefs for that number 1 seed. They could have got it if they didn't start off 0-2, but the reality is they did, and it was because of defensive issues and also offensive line issues. However, most of the starters on the offensive line and the starters on the defense, plus the second year of Zach Orr, should allow to a hotter start for the Ravens to not start off in a hole, 0-2. And for the Ravens to have a shot at that number 1 seed, which brings me to my next point about their strength of schedule. The Ravens definitely have an above average strength of schedule to play. According to Sharp, the Ravens have according to Sharp Football Analysis, the Ravens have the 12th hardest schedule. That's based off of Vegas forecasted win totals. And then when it comes to the opponent win percentage, the Baltimore Ravens have the 9th hardest schedule in 2025. However, the Bengals and the Steelers and the Browns are all right around that same strength of schedule. The Steelers are 1 spot below the Ravens with the 10th hardest, and then the Browns and Bengals are at 13 and 14. So the whole AFC North has an above average strength of schedule, and the Chiefs also have an above average strength of schedule as well, who are going to be competing for that number 1 seed. If there's one team that's looking threatening, right, as far as an easy schedule, that's the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are also in a soft division. I mean, they get to play the Jets twice, they get to play the Dolphins twice, and then, of course, the Patriots. They get to play them twice as well. At number 5, 2 other quick updates. First of all, the Ravens' former outside linebacker, Tyus Bowser, withdrew his $4.5 million grievance against the team for how it handled his knee injury in 2023, according to team sources. The Ravens will get $1.8 million back on their salary cap credit. So shout out to the Ravens. Shout out to Tyus Bowser for withdrawing the grievance. And the Ravens have a little bit of extra money heading into the season. That's a big deal in case you got to sign vets off the street, signing the rookie draft class, all that. It helps. Every penny counts. Another update is that Sam Cook, the former punter here with Baltimore, was a very good punter for a long time. He then came back as a punting coach. He's no longer with the Ravens. He's no longer on the coaching staff for Baltimore. Now, people could say, man, he was really close with Justin Tucker, so when they released him, maybe he decided to part ways. However, it's reported that he was already this was already established before the whole Justin Tucker release that he was going to be leaving Baltimore. There's also the fact that our punter last year and Jordan Stout, really the last few seasons, has not been up to snuff. I mean, he has been below average in almost every punting category. He's 23rd in pins inside the 20. He's below average in most stats, but 30th in touchbacks. He's 26th out of bounds. So Jordan Stout hasn't lived up to where he was drafted at. Ravens spent high capital to bring in Jordan Stout, with that big leg, and he just hasn't really performed where the Ravens thought he would. So I don't know. Sam Cook also apparently has like multiple kids that are in athletics, and we don't know the exact reason why Sam Cook parted ways with the Ravens, or if the Ravens parted ways with him, or if it was mutual. But the reality is he's no longer on the coaching staff. So the schedule release comes out on Wednesday, and I am very, very excited to break that down with you guys and do a game-by-game pick analysis. I already put it out there. The Ravens are getting a minimum of 12 wins if they're relatively healthy next year. But I can't wait to see the schedule and get into the nitty-gritty with you guys. Thank you all for tuning in, man. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. So if you haven't already, you're updated, notified every time there's Ravens news and content. You don't miss anything Baltimore Ravens, man. Smash the like button if you got any value out of today's content. I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.
When he wasn't looking, he ran me over.